Why are you so keen on having me as your mentor? Simon McKeon is the chairman of the Macquarie Group Melbourne. He's a lifelong intrapreneur, philanthropist, and the world's fastest sailor. He's one of the country's most respected executives, and he happens to be right here. Great to see you.
Great to be here, Daniel.
Did anyone ever tell you that you've got rock star hair?
Well, at least I've still got hair. That's the best thing.
On a serious note, you were talking about innovation and entrepreneurship well before it became what the PR agency sort of told executives to do. Why was that important to you?
I think the first thing I have to just put on the table is that here in Australia it's the most wonderful country in the world. I just genuinely love it, it's fantastic. But in some senses, life is so good that we can be a bit cocooned from needing to be different, needing to constantly improve. Just having that restless energy to change, whether you've got the ability to use a big company's balance sheet and client list to do that, or just the freshness of being a startup with nothing in the way, that's always excited me. And yeah, you're right, I was talking about this a long time ago because as an Australian, I was concerned that we were missing out on our fair share of being able to change things.
Just because you choose a big corp career doesn't need to mean that you can't have an exciting, innovative life and push change within that company.
I couldn't agree more. I take my hat off to, young startup entrepreneurs that are doing something that I could never do. But you're absolutely right. Business itself has just as, if not even better opportunity to make significant change if it wants to. As I said a moment ago, it's got a balance sheet, it's got a checkbook, it can actually fund things pretty quickly. It's got those client lists, it knows how a sector works, how an industry works. Often what it lacks is just the mindset, or if you like, the encouragement of particularly younger people to have a go. And I don't think it matters where we are, even in business, the non-for-profit sector, in government. There's always opportunities.
What would you tell the person watching that feel the entrepreneurial itch, but is not necessarily keen on the startup journey?
The first thing is to know what the heck really turns us on. There's no sense in being a pioneer startup entrepreneur just because it kind of sounds good if it's actually not your own DNA. So the first thing is, we're the only people that we're going to spend our entire lives with, so for goodness sake understand who we are. But my next bit is the push, if you like. Once we know who we are, whether we're naturally wanting to be surrounded by people and led as opposed to being the leader, whether we're more comfortable in a small organisation or a large organisation, whether we're motivated by profit or just serving the community through the non-for-profit sector, it doesn't matter where we're fitting. I guess what I'm saying is all of us can be entrepreneurs.
That he or she what should he or she do tomorrow?
I think it's a matter of getting up in the morning and saying, what am I dissatisfied? What can I improve? Rather than just accepting the status quo because it's always been like that. Just asking the question, how can I know it sounds corny and we use it a lot in the non-for-profit world, but how can we make a difference?
Yeah.
And it's not to end up in the newspapers as being, some hero or whatever. It's just to make life better for us, for the rest of our community, whatever. It's just constant improvement.
But I am way down the organisational chart. I've got this idea that I think matters.
Yep.
No one's listening.
Okay.
I don't see the will to change.
You may well be at a fork in the road where you have to ask yourself the question, Daniel, am I in the right organisation?
You mentioned leadership, which is another one of those terms that no one really knows what they mean. You told me that leadership is about understanding what motivates a group of people, or one individual in a group of people.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Well, I guess, look, you're quite right. How many books have been written about
Well, the airports are filled.
and, all that stuff. But for me, when I distill it right down to its smallest point, leadership for me is simply having an impact on a group of, not machines or things, people, and encouraging them, getting them to to do something and to do it well, effectively, etc., etc. That is leadership. And all I'm saying is there are plenty of people in high places that, interestingly, don't have that leadership ability. I mean, perhaps they can press buttons and make things happen. But for me, the true leader is someone who simply opens their mouth or leads by their own example, and people say, hey, that's the direction we've got to go. That's where we want to go.
Can leadership be learned or taught?
It has to be, yeah. But if ever I've got the privilege of sitting down with such a person in that space, in the middle of doing what they're trying to do, I take every opportunity to say to them, remind them perhaps that, they are in the middle of a very, very busy period, trying to get something up and running, all consuming. But I'm also saying, look, somehow you've got to take your opportunities to keep connected with that wider world. And I say that for a number of reasons, including that at the end of the day, chances are what they're actually producing will need a team, will need people skills to actually roll that out. Will need to be connected. They'll need to be connected to the broader community so that whatever they're developing makes some sense to the broader community. So what I'm saying is, don't lock yourself up in the garage for 10 years and be a hermit trying to create the next wonder, something or other, but take your opportunities seriously. It'll require discipline, but to remain connected to that broader world. And obviously I'm someone who says, and for goodness sake, if you've got a spare hour or so, invest it in the in the social community, because there's real need out there. And all I'm saying is, for every hour you invest in that community, I'm pretty sure you get 5 hours of value back, because you're growing as a person. You're continuing to understand what community needs are. That's got to be good for whatever you're developing.
So through all your philanthropy work, and through the fact that you were yourself diagnosed with MS a couple of years back, you've seen a high-flying career on the one end, but you've also experienced the sort of, the kind of perspective that just breaks through everything you've got.
Look, for whatever reason, some of us end up in places of enormous, responsibility and the public profile, and others don't. That's kind of irrelevant, because at the end of the day, we are who we are. I said before, we're the only people that we spend our entire lives with. And it seems to me that as to how society sees us, an important person or not, doesn't matter. What really matters is, do we feel good in ourselves? Are we doing something of relevance, significance? And I've got to say, with AI and automation just coming ahead in leaps and bounds, the issue of relevance, in my humble opinion, is going to be more important than employment in decades to come.
Thank you so much for spending your time.
Good stuff.
Thank you.